Brothers and sisters, how's it going? I hope everybody's doing beautiful today. This is the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. As always, I am Alex Robles. As always, I want to thank bensound.com for letting me use their music as my theme. And I want to thank everybody listening. I want to thank all of you for showing up, for hanging out, for listening to me for a bit. I appreciate you all taking the time. I want to give a special thanks to my buddy Ray Soto, who signed up to be a contributor on patreon.com to support the show. Ray, thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate it. If anybody needs an IT guy out there, you can find Ray Soto on Twitter at Ray Soto. That's S-O-T-O. Now, if you're not familiar with Patreon, patreon.com is a website where people can donate to artists. What you would do is you would go to patreon.com and search in My Grow Show, and the In My Grow Show campaign would come up. You can sign up to donate $1 a month, $5 a month, $1 million a month, whatever you want. You know, I don't want to put a limit on your generosity. And that Patreon campaign helps me pay for web hosting fees, podcast hosting fees, helps me buy equipment. I need to get a couple of microphones, so that money's going to go towards helping me with that. Yeah, if you can, and if the show's brought you value either through entertainment or education or some conversation, and you feel like you want to help and donate, go to patreon.com and sign up. Any help is highly appreciated, and I'm grateful for. Alright, so I was listening to last week's show, and in some of the shows I hear this thumping in the background. And I'm trying to remember, I'm like, well, what is that thumping? And I realized that that it was me banging on the table because I'm a hand talker. So there was this constant kind of like that sound every time. So now I feel kind of restrained, like I need to sit on my hands when I'm talking. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But if you picked up on it, I apologize. I don't know. It was just a funny thing I picked up on. All right, well, what's next? What am I smoking on? All right, so I'm smoking on some more of this blueberry cookies, man. I had some of it a couple of weeks ago, and I was in my local dispensary. Either they still had some left over, or they got some more in. But I definitely, once I saw that it was there, I definitely picked it up. Man, it's got that nice berry, fruity kind of smell to it. Yeah, I have to look back to the show notes of last, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to see what the cross with these blueberry cookies. I know it's a Girl Scout cookies cross, obviously, because of the name at the end. And was it I don't know, I don't remember if it was a blueberry kush. I'd have to look it up again. All right, and in my vape cartridge, today I've got a Gorilla Glue number 4. Oh yeah, I like Gorilla Glue. I like the flower from it. These vape cartridges from Absolute Extracts for the Gorilla Glue are really nice. I'm a fan of the Gorilla Glue. I like it. As a matter of fact, in the greenhouse... Wait, is it in the greenhouse? Doesn't matter. I've got a little Gorilla Glue plant and veg. Oh, she's one of the plants that need to get transplanted. That's right. She's one of the little bag seedlings I popped up. So, speaking of the dispensary, I was in my local one. Thankfully, I don't have to drive very far. It's literally in the same town of Ojai, the Sespe Creek Collective. Totally blessed. Because the other one that I could walk into as a patient, the other dispensary would be in Port Hueneme, which is, I think they're called Skunk Masters. It's just an hour away. That's an hour, well, that's probably, yeah, it's about an hour away. Give or take, 45 minutes. It depends on the freeway. It all depends on the freeway. But anyways, so I'm in the dispensary, and I noticed all of the flower, like all the bud that they had was just pre-packaged and hanging. It used to be, you could see, everybody had these little fluffy containers or big mason jars full of the flower. It was real, it was more interactive. Let's put it that way. You can't do that anymore. Everything has to be pre-packaged, apparently. It's kind of weird. I don't think I'm used to it yet. I like to be more hands-on with my flower that I'm about to buy and smoke. They have these little viewing containers that has a little magnifying glass on the lid that you can look at, and you can see, the trichomes and the crystals and all the prettiness, the frostiness. They don't let you smell it though. They don't let you smell it though. You can't, open it up and take a whiff. But it just tripped me out. I'm used to being able to, at least open up a little jar and smell it. But nope, those days are gone. Unless somebody gifts me some. I'm always down for a gift of cannabis. By the way, if anybody was curious, would Alex really take a gift of cannabis? I really would. It would put me to the test. Alright, what else? I know we just got started, but I'm going to take a short break. Allow me that. I left my water way over there on the other side of the room. It's teasing me because it's over there just sweating with the ice cubes in it. I shouldn't, anyways. Shouldn't put ice cubes in my cup. They clank around when you record. I've learned. Apparently I haven't learned because I put ice in that cup. I'll be back. Alright, mi gente, I'm back. That's right. Does everybody remember what mi gente means? My people? Very good. Very good. Wow, you almost sound like you don't have an accent when you speak Spanish. That's amazing. Alright, let's get down to the report from the Cannabis Frontline. Okay, now, once again, I got most of this information from the NORML website. That is normal.org. Alright, so let's see. What do we got here? Marijuana-related legislation died this week after failing to be voted on before crossover deadlines, including legalization bills in Kentucky and Missouri. Missouri for everybody else. I say Missouri sometimes. The Indiana state legislature failed to agree on amendments to a hemp pilot program bill before the end of the legislative session. The bill will go into the interim study commission this summer. Okay, I had to reread that, guys. And an Arizona bill to enhance quality testing practices was defeated in the House Appropriations Committee. Really? Somebody shot down a bill to make it to make the testing better for cannabis? They're like, no, the testing's gone too far. You're testing for too many impurities. Alright, let's see. On the federal level, let me remind you that Representative Tom Garrett, Republican from Virginia, and Tulsi Gabbard, hope I got that right, Tulsi, Democrat from Hawaii, have introduced bipartisan legislation H.R. 1227 to exclude marijuana from the Controlled Substance Acts, thus leaving states the authority to regulate the plant how best they see fit. Ooh, I like that. There you go. Let's see. The End Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2017 eliminates federal criminal penalties for possession and growing the plant. This legislation gives states the power and flexibility to establish their own marijuana policies free from federal interference. All right, you hear that, folks? Okay, so everybody who registered to vote, and those of you who are not, go out and register to vote, and then write your representative and tell them to vote for the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2017. Let's leave it up to the states. Come on, states' rights, right? Everybody's into states' rights. Go vote. At the very least, go write your representative. Go write a letter. It's so liberating to write a letter. Get it out. Just exercise that demon. Write the letter. All right, moving on. Here in California, let's see. California legislation is pending. AB 3157 to temporarily reduce tax rates imposed on the retail sale and cultivation of cannabis. Remember how we were talking about it's really expensive to get into the game out here legally? And that's what's driving some of the black market. All right, positive steps in legislation. See, we can do it. But why does it have to be a temporary reduction, though? Can't we just reduce them and just leave it at that? Why temporary? All right, let's see. States and local tax currently imposed upon retail cannabis sales can totals an upward of 40%. This is true. This excessive taxation places an undue financial burden, particularly on patients, many of whom are now unable to consistently afford their medicine. That's also very true. Further, these tax rates make it exceedingly difficult for retail providers to compete with those in the underground market. One of the primary goals of Proposition 64 was to bring the black market above ground and to make this market transparent. In order to do so, it is necessary to reduce existing tax rates. Otherwise, compliant businesses are at a significant disadvantage due to their inability to compete with illicit actors who do not pay similar taxes. Yeah, that's all we want, man. Just some smart legislation. Come on, guys. I know it's marijuana, I know it's pot, I know it's weed, but you don't have to tax it so high. Come on. You don't need to get the whole pie. You just get a little piece. You don't need the whole pie. Damn. All right. Now, on to Maryland. Let's see. Legislation is pending. SB 127 to expand the state's marijuana decriminalization law. If passed, SB 127 would amend penalties so that the possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana is classified as a civil rather than a criminal offense. Under current law, the possession of more than 10 grams of marijuana is a criminal misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. Well, yeah, let's get out and vote on that too. But can we take it a step further? Why don't you just decriminalize it all the way? Why does it have to be a crime? Just decriminalize it completely. That's the whole point, right? Decriminalization to make it no longer a crime. Yeah, get out and vote for that too, people. And that is it for the report from the Cannabis Frontline for today. There's a lot more information over at the normal.org website. Go over there. Take a look around. It's a great resource for information. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Next, I'm going to talk about plants and veg. But I'm going to break it up a little bit into like the easiest way I can explain it, or at least what I do. So I've got these plants and veg, these little plants and veg that, you know, they're the ones I've been talking about for the last few weeks, the seedlings, and I'm finally having to transplant them. And yes, I will post pictures on Instagram this week. I know I said I would last week. I didn't. Things have been kind of hectic around here, just time-wise. We're all adults. We got busy lives. I get caught up. This is the first time I'm going to be actually in the garden, in the greenhouse for a while. I mean, other than giving like some spot watering, it's been on autopilot, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I need to get in there and make sure everything's cool because spring is March 20th, folks. That's right. Are you ready? Do you have your seeds? Do you have your soil ready? I hope so. I mean, if you're growing outdoors. If you're growing indoors, it doesn't matter. Everything, you are in charge if you're indoors. But okay. All right, so the plant and veg. So I'm going to talk about the pot itself, the container, because I grow in containers. It's just easier for me. And for a plant and veg and in flower, the biggest I'll put the plant in is a 5-gallon container. I'll either do a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon depending on the room I have. Okay, so now the container, we have to remember the container is another way to help control how big your plant's going to get. And that's because the plant only has a certain amount of soil that it can live in. It's either, whatever you're putting it in, that's all of the soil that it has to grow in. It can't reach out and look for water and nutrients and, further than that container the way a plant would in dirt. Okay, it's just not, that's why a plant that's in the ground is going to always look a lot better, a lot healthier than a plant in a container. Whether it's a fabric pot or not, either way, eventually that plant's root system is going to hit the edge of the fabric pot or whatever container you have, and that's as far as it's going to get. That's another reason why I like to grow in a container, is because it helps me control the size of the plant that way also. Now when I grow in a container, I'll usually build my pots. I'll build what I call a rocket pot. And if you go to inmygrow.com and type in the search bar rocket pot, there's a tutorial on there that'll take you through how I make one. And it's a combination of a fabric pot and just a regular black nursery transplant pot, or any bucket really, any container. Alright, now the reason I like the fabric pot is because it allows the roots to air prune, meaning that the root system will grow to the edge of the fabric pot, and then once it hits the air, it'll basically die off. It lets the pot, the root system, get as big as it needs to be for how big the plant is, without spiraling like you would in a regular, let's say like a regular nursery pot. Your roots, depending on how long you have it in there, would just start to spiral, because they have nowhere to go, and they wind up basically choking itself off. Now I'm also not too worried about that unless it's a mother plant, because the cannabis plants have a really short life cycle. Like I said, unless I'm keeping a mother plant for a year or two, then I'm going to make different arrangements. I'll get a nice big fabric pot at 20-30 gallon. Plus it also aerates the root system. It also helps get air in and around the roots a lot easier. The downside to a fabric pot, what I don't like is, if I have to stake it down towards the edges, it tends to crush and crumble, and it's a little difficult to deal with. That, and if and when I have to transplant or get the root mass, because I also harvest the root ball from my cannabis plants. I use cannabis root for some of my topicals, so in order to get the root mass out, in a regular fabric pot, I basically have to cut it out almost. It rarely goes well. Sometimes if I, peel down the edges, I can kind of peel it out like a banana almost. So what I do is I get a transplant pot, a regular black nursery pot. Nurseries are always throwing them away. My local nursery usually has a stack of them next to their recycling dumpster, so I just grab them from there. And I will use a cup saw for a drill and drill these big 3-4 inch holes in them, because I'll also cut a big circle out from the bottom of it. I'll get a piece of felt, cut it the size of the bottom, stick it at the bottom of the pot, cut some more felt the size of the inside of the pot itself, of the round, and line it like that. Just let it kind of line the inside, and making sure both edges overlap at least 2 inches. Okay. And the reason I do this, the reason I use a transplant pot, is because a transplant pot gives me that rigidness that I'm looking for. And you don't have to use a transplant pot. You can use anything that's going to hold its shape. If you can find a laundry basket, I'm sure that would work just as well. Alright, so once my pot's ready, once I've built it, once I've got the felt inside, I'll fill it with soil. Now my soil mix, I'll usually get an enriched soil mix. It's called Recipe 420. I get it also here at my local nursery. And yeah, it's real funny. It's named Recipe 420. I know I've talked about it before, but I get a kick out of it. And then to that, I'll add 25% earthworm castings. I like adding the earthworm castings because it's going to help feed the plant for a while. And, well, it's going to help feed the microbes. It's going to help feed the plant once it breaks down. And I'll also mix in, for every gallon of soil that container is going to hold, I'll add like a half a cup of kelp meal. Okay, because that's also going to feed that plant. So I'll mix all that soil together. I'll put it in the container. And that soil is going to feed that plant and veg for about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the plant. Some plants are heavier feeders than others, but for the first 3 to 4 weeks, I'm not going to feed that plant anything but microbes. Now, the microbes, what they're going to do is they're going to help break down the nutrients in that soil to help it be plant available, okay? Because because the worm castings themselves, the kelp meal itself, isn't really like plant available. It has to be broken down, and microbes are what do that. They break it down, they make it plant available, and they feed it. And also the reason I won't feed anything is because I also don't want to overload the plant too much and make the soil too hot to where there's so much food being broken down that the soil gets real hot. That's why I wait for about 3 to 4 weeks. After that, I start on my feeding regimen, I'll go over that later. But that's how I get my pot and my soil ready for my plants that I'm going to transplant, my seedlings now that I'm going to transplant into veg. Like I said, I'll post pictures as I go today and up on Instagram. And if you have any questions or comments about it, send me an email. That's inmygrow@gmail.com. And find me on Instagram @inmygrow. And next time I will talk about veg. Let's see, which part? Talked about the pot, talked about the soil. I guess the plant. What the plant's going to really do. We'll go over some of that. We'll go over the highlights. But once again, as always, I do recommend find a good grow book. Find a good book that's going to teach you how to grow cannabis. And read it. Please. Cover to cover. Oh, it's going to make growing cannabis so much fun. But you got to put in the time and the effort. Okay? You can't just... Or I should say you shouldn't just expect people to answer your questions online. Seriously. We've all got time. Stay off of social media and read a book. Turn off the TV. Read a book. Okay. So that's it, folks. That's all I've got today. I want to thank you again for showing up. For hanging out. I'm going to get out of here because I have a busy day. And then I'm going to go out into the gardens. And I've got some gardening to do because it's almost spring. And then I'm going to make some bread with my daughter when they get home. Yeah, I'm going to make some bread. And that takes a while because I got to let the dough rise. All right. Like I was saying, thanks for showing up. If you can support the show financially, go to inmygrow.com. Find the support the show link. Go to patreon.com. Or use the Amazon affiliate link and support the show that way. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. And remember to grow, learn, and teach.
Nothing can ever change when you're just like the rest. Just a boom, fashion. Got no thoughts of your own. Just a boom, fashion. Got no thoughts of your own. And the policeman that you woke up for, but you're just like him. Wear uniform, just a boom, fashion. Got no thoughts of your own. Just a boom, fashion. Got no thoughts of your own. Ah, you're a fashion punk, 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 fashion punk.